Hello guys, welcome to Miss Renfro's classroom via virtual world here. Today we're going to be doing a lesson on divergent, convergent, and transforming boundaries. If you came to drop off your projects with me, then you would have got a paper that looks like this. If you didn't drop off projects with me, there is an assignment on STEM Scopes that has the same paper. You'll just have to do it on the computer instead of doing it on paper with me. So that being said, we're going to start on that. For this, you need something, two objects. It doesn't matter what they are. I'm using Hot Wheel cars, like relatively large Hot Wheel cars, but Hot Wheel cars for this. It doesn't have to be Hot Wheels cars, obviously, but you need two objects for this. This is one of those lessons that we do that physical movement helps a lot with getting those words in your brain and helping you know exactly the differences between the two. So grab something, it don't matter, it could be, I don't know, grab anything, two objects, two. So the first thing on here is we have number one, it says pictures A and B show when cars model convergent movement. The question is what happens when those two cars converge. So if you look at the pictures in A and B, you can see that there's two cars that have hit head on in a car wreck. And so with converge, you would take two objects, and converge means that they move towards each other. They move, they start apart and they move together. They converge, they come together. Okay? So if you have two objects, you mentally go, converge. Ooh. I'm telling you, it sticks in your brain. Okay, so at this point, with converging objects, it means that you have two objects again. They start apart and they begin to come together. So they should start with a gap in between, and then as they move forward, that gap will begin to disappear. So if you have two objects that converge, they come together. If you think about like on an interstate, like if you're driving and a lane converges, it means that this lane converges into this lane. They started apart, they come together, and they continue moving forward. Hopefully if they do it right, there's no car wrecks, but that's not always the case. Okay, so at this point we're going to pause and let you answer questions 1, 2, and 3 on your paper. Okay, starting on the number 4. So picture D shows the result when two cars diverge. What happens when they diverge? So notice on this time, when we say diverge, we mean that they start together. There is no gap. They are together. Okay, and diverge means that they begin to move apart. So if they diverge, then they end with a gap, whereas in converge, they start with the gap. So diverging objects move apart. They go away from each other. If you ever read or watched the movie Divergent, then they had the factions, and the divergent would begin to move away from the way the factions worked. And previously you had one faction you belonged to, and divergent began to move away from that process, and it began to become like all 5 of them, and they were separated from the rest of the people by the end of the time because they weren't the same. So if something diverges, it moves apart. Okay, again with your objects, if you will go through the process of starting them together and think and tell yourself this is diverging, help get that motion in your brain along with the object. So again, when something diverges, two objects start together and they move apart, leaving a gap between them. We're going to pause and let you answer questions 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so our last one says, picture E shows a result when cars model transform movement. Now normally we'd be in class together and I would ask you like what kind of car wreck could result in picture E. And I have a lot of people who say different things. We'll say like someone will say they T-bone. T-bone would be more of a converge, like they come together. This is a case where the two cars would what we call trade paint in car wrecks or a side swipe. So it'd be two cars that are going in opposite directions and they swipe past each other, and so it would scrape the paint off the side of the car. So that would be transform. So again, when you have transform, they're both moving in opposite directions. So one's going one way, one's going the other. But as they do that, they slide against each other, and so we call that transform. So again, with your objects, scrape against the side, going in opposite directions, but swiping against each other, almost like you're trying to like light a match. That would be considered a transform movement, as if you're like lighting a match at like kind of motion. And I'm going to go ahead and let you answer questions 7 through 8 at this point. Now, on Google Classroom, if you get Google Classroom on your phone or your parents' phone to show me that you did papers or any papers in the future, if you get on your phone and you go to the assignment and you hit attach, there's a place that says take picture, and you can take a picture of what you did and turn it in. That only works on a phone, so it would have to be your phone or your parents' phone. If you do it on your parents' phone, you have to sign in with your account. You can't sign in with theirs. If it doesn't have your classes there when you sign in, then you're not in the right account right now. So it has to be with your school account. But that's how you can take pictures to prove that you're taking care of work. And I will do my best to get you credit in some way. I don't know how that's going to work at this point, but I will make sure you get something for making sure you're taking care of your stuff outside of school. I miss you. I miss you so much. We'll probably have more than one. We'll have another video lesson coming to you this week, talking about how this relates to like the earth. One thing you will need to do this week, and I will post it daily, is you need to be taking your continent practice quizzes. Quizlets, I'm going to give it to you a couple of different ways, because for what we're going to be doing, it's really important that you know what your continents are called and what their shapes are. Because for our next point that we do, if you know your continents, it'll make this next thing so much easier. Okay, so you're going to be doing some continent practice this week to help you with knowing the names of these plate boundaries. So thank you, love you, talk to you later.